thanks for allowing me to be here. It's always a blessing to not only see you here, but to see you around the state. And I just want to just make sure that you guys know how important it is what you do, how important I think it is what you do as far as bringing local news to all points, all corners of West Virginia. I've got to meet a lot of you over the last year and a lot of your colleagues as we travel around. I love reading your newspapers and listen to radio stations, just stuff. You guys doing really good stuff. I wish you had more resources. I can't fix that, but I hope you keep going. I hope you understand how vitally important it is that we have strong local news. Last year for me was it really wasn't what I thought it would be, but I absolutely such a blessing to be the state treasurer of West Virginia over the last years. I really enjoyed traveling West Virginia and going to all the different parts about West Virginia. I met so many wonderful people. We've had great conversations. I probably asked as many questions generally as a 3-year-old, so I've got to learn a lot about West Virginia and also dispel all the things I thought I understood that I didn't understand. So it's been just a really fruitful year for me, and I hope that I've made a difference in the lives of West Virginians as I continue trying to learn about West Virginia. And of course, the beauty of West Virginia, you only get that when you're running around 2-lane roads, and that's absolutely just the most beautiful state in the Union. But I also learned a lot about local leaders, particularly the county officials and city officials, and how hard they work, and EDAs and PSDs, and just all the different folks out there that are doing everything they can on the ground, trying to make their communities better. And we have a lot of really wonderful local officials working really, really hard to do the right things. And getting their perspectives, I think, was really, really helpful. I wish I would have had that perspective before I went into the House of Delegates in 21. And definitely before I joined Governor Justice right after that, because I did learn some things I think I would have advocated for a little bit differently. But we're going to continue to meet with folks, continue to learn about West Virginia and so forth. But again, I think if I had a couple of big takeaways from last year's travel is that the West Virginians, they want good roads, they want good schools, they want good public safety, and they want the state capital to leave them alone. So that's pretty much the biggest thing I have learned. Local control is something that people outside of this capital want, and it's something we need to give them. I've got 4 bills, and I've got them with me today in case somebody wants copies. If we run out of copies, we can give you more. But there's 4 bills that we've been talking about over the state in the last couple of years or last couple of months, and just want to talk to you about why I think they're important. And they're not really in any particular order, so the ranking of the order doesn't really mean how important they are. But the first one, we've talked a lot about tax cuts on tips and tax cuts on overtime, or eliminating tax on overtime, eliminating tax on tips, and why I think it's important. And I think one thing I kind of start out with is we do a lot of tax credits, and we do a lot of tax cuts for businesses when they come into West Virginia. We do a lot to help businesses in West Virginia. We don't do a lot of working people's tax cuts. We even eliminated, just administrative, we eliminated tax on Social Security a few years ago. That's for retirees, and it's a really, really good thing. But if you're a barber, you're a beautician, you're a nurse working overtime, you're an iron worker working overtime, these folks work really hard. And let's do a tax credit for them. Let's do a tax cut for them. President Trump did that in D.C. last summer. And so kind of if the status quo is now, what happens is you won't pay tax from the feds on these type of incomes. When you do your state income tax, you got to add it back and you got to pay tax on it. It's not a big number for the state budget. I think it's somewhere around $20 million, but it's a big number if it's your family. And so this is something I think we should do. We can afford it. We can do it out of surplus. We don't have to cut anything. We don't have to raise anything. We can absolutely do it. So we're going to continue to advocate for that. We do have the bill ready. We talked to the legislative leadership of both sides. We've given them the documentation, so we're hoping that bill starts moving next week. In addition to that, term limits for public folks in public works. This is also not new. We do term limits for governors, for sheriffs. We even passed a resolution a few years ago in the legislature. We think we should do it in Congress. These are all full-time positions, but public service is supposed to be about public service. You come, you do your stuff, you work hard, and you go back home and you live in the laws that you passed. In West Virginia, these offices, people have stayed in 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, And when you stay in office that long, it becomes about you. It's not about the 1.7 million people that you represent. Let's get some common sense term limits in. Let's get that through. The way it would work, it'd be a resolution passed with both legislators, and then it'd go before the people as a vote, because it is a constitutional change. Again, I think it's something we should do, and I sure hope we do it. As far as I'm pretty sure that all the Board of Public Works are for it. So I don't think we have any opposition this time. We got close a few years ago, and some folks kind of fought against it. But again, public service is about public service. It's not supposed to be a career. Teachers. A lot of conversation about education, about private education, about public education. It should be, because it is the number one priority, I believe, for state government. There's a lot of things we need to do, we need to address in public ed. So this is not, I don't have a comprehensive approach, although I've done a lot of work, a lot of study, got a lot of ideas. But one thing we can do out of surplus. We don't have to cut anything, we don't have to raise any taxes, is make sure that every teacher in West Virginia makes at least $50,000. This is following a program that the state of Arkansas did a few years ago, Governor Huckabee Sanders did a couple of years ago. We can do that. Our beginning teacher salary is about $42,000. We are 50th in the nation in teacher compensation. We can't be first, but we can be a heck of a lot better than 50th. So this is something I think we really need to do. If we really believe in education, we need to take care of the VIPs in education. If we can't attract new teachers, if we can't retain our current teachers, we're just not going to be able to move the ball very far. And also, this legislation has $2,000 raise for any teacher that makes over $50,000, and there are some that make over $50,000. It's not a fix for everything we need to do in public ed, but it's absolutely, I believe, a start. The other bill that we have is basically a sunset on all tax credits. We've got probably 30 or 40 tax credits in the code that have been passed over the last 30 or 40 years. I'm not saying they're good, I'm not saying they're bad, but the legislature needs to have a conversation about these tax credits on a periodic basis. The way state government works is we pass something under the dome, it becomes law, and we rarely look back. I'm just asking the legislature to pass this and look back and make sure that they think that every tax credit we have makes sense today. How much does it cost? Is it worthwhile to do that? But for anybody that's a student of the budget we'll see here in a few days, there's a long list of tax credits that will be in the budget that we'll talk about, so you'll be able to see those. So we think that's really, really important. Now, we'll also be weighing in on other things as the session goes on. And everybody's got biases and so forth. And a big part of my bias is that our government has never been stronger, it's never been bigger, it's never been more powerful, it's never been more intrusive. We've done some stuff in the last 2 years to slow that down, but we've got a long way to go. And so much of what we do under the dome basically is all about controlling the lives of our folks that live out in the counties, live in the cities. And so we really need to start changing that, changing perspective. And we need to have a little bit of humility in the Capitol, my office included. We don't have all the answers. One size fits all never works. So let's try to figure out how we can roll some of that down, shrink the size of government in a prudent way, get back to the core things that government needs to do, and get out of some of these other things that we have no business doing, and we also don't know what we're doing. But again, there's a lot of hubris under the dome. We need to stop that and go back the other direction. And and by doing that, we can empower local governments, agencies, to make their own decisions of what they think is best for their particular communities or particular counties. So we'll be doing a lot of work with regard to that. Now, I'm anticipating that I may get a question about the governor's tax cut priorities that he talked about the other day. So I just thought I would just take that head on so that Stephen won't have. See, I don't know what you're asking. That's going to be something else. You can ask about the best food I've got over the last year, ate over the last year. But so the governor talked a little bit the other day about his desire to cut personal income tax by another 5 or 10%. And I got to say, when I heard that, I was really pleased that this is a priority for him. I'm pleased that he now believes that we have enough money to do it, because we spent about 6 months last year talking about a deficit that we didn't have. And I'm also pleased that he's jumping on a policy that we worked really, really hard on in the last administration, and a policy that I led. During Justice Administration, we thought this was a huge priority to reduce our personal income tax, and we had three reasons we thought was important. First of all, is we really felt that we need to be more competitive with our surrounding states, and we knew we're not. Second of all, our citizens work real hard to pay their taxes, so every dollar that comes in the state of West Virginia, it's not earned by the state of West Virginia, it's earned by our citizens. And if we can reduce that burden, particularly in a time where we have a lot of inflation, particularly a time when people are really fighting hard to pay their utilities, to pay their medical costs, or their general cost of living, we need to help them. And so we really want to do that. And the third thing is the only way to restrain the growth of government is you got to cut the money. So we came up with a plan to do that. We worked really hard. I got a lot of bruises by getting that through, so we worked hard to get that through with the legislature. We came up with a way to do it, and basically came up with this $1 billion a year tax cut for West Virginia taxpayers that's in place currently. I'm very, very proud of that. We later added on a 4% tax cut, and we later added on an additional 2% tax cut. So when the governor says he wants to move that forward, we're absolutely excited about it, and we definitely want that, want to be able to get there. But now we're at the point in time where the legislature is coming into session, right? And so a lot of times we can talk about things, and then sometimes we got to, as my math teacher used to say, we got to show our work. And so Wednesday's all about showing our work. And so I'm really excited and I'm looking forward to seeing the governor's revenue budgets, because in his revenue budget, he should show his tax cuts that he wants to do, whether it's 5 or whether it's 10. That should be reflected in the budget that is presented to the legislature on Wednesday night, which all of us will have the opportunity to see. And so that's a really good thing. So how's it going to do it? What's the process, okay? And so we'll be looking for things, for example, and there's a lot of rumor mills, so I don't know what the plan is, because I haven't seen it. But if the plan is that we're going to increase this tax to lower that tax, we'll probably be against that. If the plan is that he thinks there's enough revenue coming in that we can do it without raising some other tax, hey, let's high five, let's get this signed, let's get it in effect somewhere in the next couple of weeks. So again, we need to see that side of it. But as we know from our household budgets, there's another side to the budget, and that's the expenditure side. And a budget is all about priorities. So the government budget might have a few more line items, but it's not much different what we do in our businesses or what we do in our homes. It may have a few more zeros, but it's the same. It's what are our priorities. So on Wednesday, we'll get to see the governor's priorities for this $5+ billion, and we put a special revenue of $7 or $8 billion for what he thinks is important. And so we'll have to kind of look at to make sure that if the tax cuts are paid for by expenditure cuts, well, what are those cuts? Does that make sense? So we need to see what those are, right? If again it's out of surplus, it's easy, but we look at it's out of tax, out of that, it's just different. If his budget doesn't include raises to teachers, where the teachers aren't going to make $50,000 next year, then we'll probably have some reservations about his plan. So again, this is all, the legislative session is nothing that it's about showing the work. And so Wednesday night we'll be able to see that. I look forward to seeing that. I want to be able to back in on doing another 5 or 10% personal income tax cut. I think it would get us closer. But again, we've got to show our work. We've got to make sure that we can do it. So thanks so much for the opportunity. Thanks for what you do. I'll take any questions, but lunch is back here, so it's all up to you. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, I think at this point. So Governor Morrissey wants to cut the 5 to 10%. You said you were very, very happy to hear that when he said that. One of the ways he plans or hopes to pay for this is with the tax revenue from the data centers that are being talked about all over the state. Criticism of the data centers is it takes a lot of local control away, which is something that you said you feel very passionate about. So if the governor's plan to cut taxes, which you're in favor of, requires the elimination of another level of local control, how do you reconcile that?
Well, I think if it's not a household budget or it's not a business budget, I would not make a decision on something I think might come in the door sometime in the future. So I think that decision's down the road when it comes in. So you don't do a budget because in your house, right? You wouldn't do a budget because you think you're going to get a raise a year from now or 2 years from now. You might, but you wouldn't do that budget. You'd wait for that raise to happen, right? In government, we have to be really conservative, right? We can't get extended out there because it's not our money. So again, if it's something based upon something that's going to happen in the future, I'd really have to look at those details to make sure. Same with business, right? I'm not going to expand my business because I think I might get some more business 2 years ago. I got to be really certain about it and make sure I got the capital. So I don't quite understand exactly how we could budget it, how we could do that now. I guess you'd have to have a lot of triggers, a lot of what-if statements and so forth. I think you'd be a lot better off to wait till that money came in the door and then determine how to allocate it.
Would you like for people to ask questions while they're eating lunch?
It doesn't matter to me. I'm never going to get
Start lunch?
Yeah, because we're going to have the panel in an hour, so.
Yeah.
Let's get the treasure pack up here.
So how do you want to do lunch in the back?
Yeah, just folks in the back, if you want to go ahead and start eating, and we'll sit back down and we can listen. Don't want to be disrespectful to the state treasurer, obviously, but we do have a schedule, so,
You can tell I like to eat. You guys do not hurt my feelings to eat.
You took my tax cut question, so I'll do Hope Scholarship.
Okay, very good.
Two things. How have your conversations been with lawmakers about paying for the Hope Scholarship? Because of course, even during December interims, we heard some consternation about that. And second of all, we do expect to see some bills maybe trying to tweak the rules of eligibility or how the money can be used. As you've reviewed this program over the last year, do you have any changes you'd like to make, or do you feel like it's running well, it's being vetted well, no tweaks on how the money can be spent, et cetera?
Okay. Yeah, we got basically a threefold responsibility when it comes to HOPE, right? One is we administer the program. We unabashedly advocate for the program, but at the same time, we're also very transparent about the program. So the legislators, so the governor, so citizens, and all of you guys know everything about it, where the money's spent, how it's spent, who it's spent with, and so forth. So we want to be very transparent because it is a new program. And most new programs that we've done in West Virginia over time have been adjusted. I think Promise Scholarship many, many years ago. So there's some expectation. What we're suggesting, what we're advocating for is let's go to universal eligibility. Let's see what next year looks like, and then let's assess where we're at and what we want to do. Because part of the budget estimates that we're doing this year are a little bit of shot in the dark because we don't know how many children, how many parents are going to take advantage of the program. So we continue to change our estimates. I think we've done it 3 times this year, and it's because we get new information. When we get new information, we want to get it out the door as soon as possible, but there's still a little bit of guesswork. So our suggestion is let's wait 1 more year, let's see how many children we're dealing with, and then look at all the aspects of the situation. But I've had a lot of conversations with legislative leadership. We answer the questions really, really clearly. We get back to them, and there's some obvious things they might want to do that they're talking about doing, but again, I think we're more concerned with what's the long-range cost of the program, and I think that's going to take a little bit more time for us to get our arms around it.
You mentioned the sunset on tax credits. Are there any standouts or others that you found maybe in the past, or think you could give an example?
I think the biggest standout it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. That's the biggest standout.
Or for what tax credit, or like what was the tax credit for?
If you look at them all together, it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. There are some tax credits that maybe one company's only taking advantage of. But again, we've got biases. But one of my biases is we pass a lot of laws, a lot of regulations over there, we never go back and look at it. Since I'm a little bit of a tax nerd, and I did a couple of years at the Department of Revenue, I kind of see some of this stuff. I think this is a start. But it's more just looking at it to make sure economically, that from a legislative priority, that they make sense. But any spend that's in the hundreds of millions of dollars needs to be looked at. And what also kind of happens that people don't quite understand is a lot of times when you're looking at our monthly revenue numbers, you need to think of those numbers as net. They're not gross. So whenever someone claims a credit, we deduct it out of what people see on the top lines. And so we've got so many credits going in so many different directions. we believe strongly they need to be looked at, they need to be reviewed, just to make sure that they make sense. I've advocated for this for a couple of years, kind of quietly, outside of this year, since it's not getting much traction, maybe I need to be a little bit loud about it.
Could you expect any pushback from lawmakers?
I think there'll be some pushback maybe from some of the folks that take advantage of the credits. And I'm not saying they're bad people. I mean, when the credits are passed, when they're out there, every taxpayer needs to go get the credits that are available to them. But again, it's just a huge amount of money in our budget.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your lunch. If anyone wants a copy of the bills, let us know. We really appreciate it. Happy New Year.